unmatched ferocity, Hitler's war machine has launched its blitzkrieg against Western Europe, pushing it to the brink. As we brace for our darkest hour, we must summon our...
Yo, what's good? It's your boy Kevin, and I'm here back with another video game analysis. Today I'm going to be breaking down Call of Duty World at War and Call of Duty World War II, and seeing how they fare up to real life, and seeing what they might represent accurately and what they might not represent as accurately. As always, this video specifically is dedicated to all the people that served, especially as Fleet Week is in full swing as I record this very same session at 5 in the morning. Don't question my sleep times, but yeah, let's hit it.
This day we set upon a mighty endeavor.
So this mission, D-Day of Call of Duty World War II, is actually surprisingly really accurate, and part of the reason why is because the invasion of Normandy, specifically Omaha Beach as being depicted here, is one of the most famous beaches that is part of the whole invasion. Part of the reason why it's really accurate is because obviously they include the LCVPs, which were almost a necessity to include. If they were included, I would call it a crime. Not only that, they do accurately mention bangalores, which were weapons that were commonly used to break open like barricades, walls, that type of stuff, to allow infantry to really get through. Not only that, they include hedgehogs, which a lot of people don't know that they're called hedgehogs, and they're often used to deter heavy armor or tanks and that type of stuff from supporting infantry as they land. And it was aimed to make it easier for them to actually like get down to what they wanted to do, which was to kill the enemy. Another surprising feature of this whole mission that I wasn't expecting but was actually really accurate was the inclusion of PPSH 41s on the German side. And part of the reason why these are present, although being Russian weapons, part of the reason why they're included is because the Germans actually captured a crap ton of PPSH 41s and their ammunition as part of Operation Barbarossa, and a couple weeks prior to the invasion of Normandy, they were actually able to successfully capture a supply drop from the Soviet Red Army, and they just captured a crap ton of PPSH. The inclusion of here really shows really well done research. Just it's good. It's good. I don't know what else to say. Obviously, they correctly portray the intensity, the craziness, the chaos of Normandy. I feel like that's pretty hard to mess up because, you know, it's so well known that I think it'd be almost a crime to mess that up. But it's good on them that they got this done, and it's pretty good, I'd say. The only thing I'd honestly complain about is for some reason there's a lack of airstrike or air support. A couple hours prior to the invasion and a couple days before the invasion even, there were many airstrikes and air support units that were called in to just kind of soften up the Germans. For some reason they were like lacking or missing in this whole invasion, which, I mean, you know, it's a minor feature. Probably wasn't that big of a deal, so, you know, it was pretty good.
Thanks, bud.
Alright, so in this mission, the Rhine, the objective here is to take the Ludendorff Bridge, also known as the Bridge of Remagen, which is apparently the last bridge that separates the western side of the Rhine from the eastern side of the Rhine. Alright, so let's break this down for you. So first off, there are some bits of this mission that are actually pretty accurate. For example, the MG42s on the western side of the bridge are pretty darn accurate. Yes, there were MG42s shooting down American vehicles, infantry, and stuff like that, but it was actually a lot better for the Americans than what's depicted here. For some reason, there's a complete lack of the amount of vehicles that were actually present. Because think, if it's the last bridge that's left between left and right side, why the hell would you not send in as much as you can? So, because of that, in reality there was actually a pretty heavy presence of armored vehicles and stuff like that, to the point that the Americans even had M26 Pershing tanks, which, I don't know if you're aware, are some of the best, if not the best, heavy armored tank. It was ridiculously good for its time. To basically sum it up, it was pretty easy for the Americans to take the western side of the bridge. The 9th Armored Division took the MG-42s pretty easily. It took him like a couple minutes to take the towers. Then after that, it was just about crossing the bridge. So again, the 9th Armored Division started crossing the bridge, and like the game depicts, yes, the Germans do try and blow up the bridge, but they actually fuck up and break in blowing up the bridge because they only have half of the explosives that are needed to blow up the bridge. Not only that, it wasn't even military grade explosive either. It was just regular old mining explosives. So it didn't even blow up the bridge the way it was supposed to because it was pretty bad. Like it was just bad explosives. So because of that, the moment that the Germans blew up the bridge, the 9th Armor just stood where they were and just used the dust and everything as cover and didn't take a single casualty in crossing the bridge because there was no one to fight. There was no one on the Germans. So it was pretty easy for them to cross. And the moment they got to the eastern side, the little Germans that were left were kind of just like shot down by a bunch of American vehicles on the other side. So the battle was pretty much over and it was pretty easy to take the bridge. Which means that in the game, the eastern side of the fight is mostly fiction. This like never happened. There weren't any Stukas that like went down like blasting American infantry. That didn't happen. And there certainly wasn't any just random old American private jumping on an AA gun and shooting down Stukas. That's never gonna happen, especially if you're shooting down like 12 or 15 Stukas. That's definitely not happening. So besides that, this mission, obviously it was fun to play, but it's pretty inaccurate. And to be honest, they should have just picked a different event anyway, because if it wasn't for the creative liberties that Sledgehammer took in making this level, I would imagine it'd be pretty damn boring to play it anyway. So they should have just picked a different mission and just kept it at that.
Nice, Daniels! It's time. Good luck, all of you. This is it, Miller. Okay.
Alright, so the first mission we're going to be taking a look at is a mission from Call of Duty World at War, which is the older brother. The first mission we're going to be looking at is Little Resistance. Little Resistance is essentially depicting the battle of Peleliu Island and the invasion of Peleliu Island. So it follows our main protagonist, Private C. Miller, and his Marine Corps that's invading the Peleliu beach shore. First off, the mission does a pretty darn good job of actually displaying how crazy and insane this whole invasion was. So rather than displaying the famous LCVP boats that were used at like Normandy invasions, this one's actually depicting the LVTs, which were essentially kind of a combo between a boat and a tank, and yeah, that's basically what it was. So during the Peleliu Island invasion, they actually used LVTs rather than the standard LCVP. So that's what's being depicted here. His Marine Corps is on the ocean, drifting towards the crazy amount of gunfire and bullets whizzing past his skull. But that's basically what's being depicted here. Some issues with this depiction, well, actually there's a variety of issues with this depiction. Actually, one, I don't know what private or what Marine Corps or what army or what planet this was filmed on, but I don't know of any private that has ever called an airstrike on a couple of machine guns and bunkers up ahead, much less a Navy aircraft carrier machine gun, because for some reason Miller is a jack of all trades, apparently. Basically what I'm talking about is a depiction of the main character calling in an airstrike on a couple of bunkers up ahead. Now obviously this was done for entertainment purposes and for creative expression, but I don't understand why the dude, the sergeant right next to him, didn't just do it himself. Like, if you're the one with the rank, why don't you do it? You're the one with the code name, you're the one with the codes, why don't you do it? Like, I get it, it's for creative expression and entertainment, but it would have been just as easy to just watch him do it and then watch the outcome. The second biggest issue out of this whole thing is the fact that the aircraft carriers that were present at the fight weren't even equipped to have these supposed rockets or airstrike rockets anyway. Some of them, if not any of them, even had that type of firepower on them because they just weren't loaded. Like, that's the simple answer. They just weren't loaded for that type of stuff. The whole idea was that Maritime was just gonna raid the island and take it over. And I guarantee you, those Marines had a hell of a time to deal with those absolutely nightmarish MGs that were up top the bunkers.
Get to it. Double time.
Alright, so the second battle we're going to be analyzing here is once again from Call of Duty World at War, and it's actually a battle that depicts the Battle of Okinawa. And the reason why I picked this is because, one, I just love the Battle of Okinawa. It's one of my favorite battles out of the whole World War. Not only that, it's one of my favorite missions in the game, so obviously I had to include it in this analyzation, but we'll talk about what I like about it later. So, historical accuracy, right? The first bit that I noticed that was really accurate was the lack of ammunition and support for the Marine Corps. This is actually pretty accurate. The military at this time was practically dry. The Battle of Okinawa is really long, like many other battles in the war, so the Marine Corps basically had absolutely nothing. They were running on scraps at this point, and I wouldn't even be surprised if some of them were using Japanese weapons because they had no ammunition. So it's actually pretty accurate that they included this bit where you see them actually grabbing ammo. And the second bit that I noticed that I haven't been mentioning in this whole video so far is that the bonsai charges, that's actually really accurate. These were called, well, bonsai charges. And part of the reason why they were so infamous is because a lot of Marine Corps veterans served in the Pacific Theater can actually attest to saying that these are some of the scariest things on the planet to witness. A giant wave of Japanese soldiers basically sending themselves to suicide and seeing if they're going to hit you with their giant pointy pokey sticks. So I'm glad that they included this, and I'm glad that they're so common because they happen in practically every single mission that you play as the Americans, and it's almost a crime if it doesn't happen because I swear to God, it's probably in every single mission. But honestly, that's as far as the historical accuracies go. Now, for the historical inaccuracies, there's a larger list. So the biggest, first and foremost inaccuracy is the bombing of Shuri Castle. I don't know where Treyarch thought of this, but the bombing of Shuri Castle never happened. There was never any Air Force that went down bombing Shuri Castle. And part of the reason why it never happened is because there weren't any troops in Shuri Castle to begin with. Like, this whole mission is completely fictional. There was never any fight in the castle, much less in the square. Barely any Japanese soldiers were in the castle, if any, because most of the fighting happened on the outskirts of the castle. There was a lot of killing, and probably the same amount of fighting that's being depicted in this mission right now, but in the actual castle, it was boring. It was quiet. If anything, there was probably like 10, but compare that to like how many American soldiers there are, it's like so irrelevant, so minuscule that it wouldn't even have been worth being that much of a threat. Now I get why they decided to upskill and hype up this battle. It's because Shuri Castle is, well, Shuri Castle, it's supposed to be this Japanese landmark, and in your brain it would have made sense, like, oh, we're gonna take this, right, to kind of like overwhelm the enemy. And in a way, Treyarch is right in using this as a stage for their mission, but in reality it didn't really serve as any significance because the Japanese gave it up pretty easily, and they just knew that it wouldn't, if they held it, it wouldn't be of any value or significance in their efforts during the war, so it really wasn't a priority from the Japanese to protect. But besides that, I love this level. I love the Battle of Okinawa. I have great respect for all the people who served in the war in general, but man, Battle of Okinawa, that's some crazy stuff right there, and I like this level. Alright, and the last bit that Call of Duty World War II depicts is the unfortunate events that happened as part of the Holocaust. When I first saw this, I was actually very surprised to see that they even bothered to try and depict the Holocaust. And it's specifically because it's a really touchy topic that not a lot of people want to talk about. Specifically because if you mess it up, obviously there's going to be a lot of backlash. And Call of Duty World War II is no exception. A lot of people, specifically a lot of Holocaust survivors, have talked how a lot of the modern depictions of the Holocaust are pretty bad, and it's because they don't show how gruesome or how violent or how messed up the Holocaust really was. And I think that Sledgehammer took a very brave step in trying to show a massive audience what the Holocaust really was like. But obviously, because I'm talking about it, there were some issues. The biggest issue, in my opinion, was I feel like it focused too much on the idea of it being a kind of heroic moment for Daniels in trying to save Zussman, because for some context, Zussman was one of the main characters, was actually eventually taken as a prisoner of war, and he was sent to this quote-unquote labor camp. Daniels, being our heroic protagonist, goes after him in trying to save him, and all of his clues lead him to this specific camp that we're looking at right now. And I just feel like it was too much of focus on the whole idea of him trying to save Zussman, because I feel like if you're going to show the Holocaust, you might as well just show the Holocaust how it is, instead of focusing on this American idea of heroism and symbolism and trying to save your best friend. Granted, it's not a bad thing, but like, you had a whole game to do it. I don't know why you're choosing to do it right now. But besides the point, there are obviously some unfortunate accuracies to this. The burning of the books, blood being all over the walls, and the ropes. All of these unfortunate things that I have to mention are, in fact, reality. These are some of the things that occurred at these camps, but the reality is that these are only a tiny fraction of the things that happen at these camps, because we're honestly never going to know what truly happened at these camps. I think that Sledgehammer tried their best in trying to depict this, but I feel like it would have been better if it wasn't so heavily focused on Zussman and his savior.
I'll surprise you in Longview.
Oh, and by the way, while we're talking about Zussman and his apparent saving from this labor camp, I don't know if it's just me. I feel like Zussman is too healthy in this clip. Like, I don't know how to word it, but he just looks too healthy. And based on all the images and all the video that I've seen of the Holocaust, and I'm assuming the same pictures and videos that Sledgehammer Games also saw, he looks too healthy. Like, he looks like the Germans actually fed him, which is, I'm not trying to make a joke out of this, but it's, you know, obviously these people weren't fed. So I don't know why he looks like he's been fed. I don't know, maybe I'm just like niching now, but it's just, if you're gonna display the accuracies of the Holocaust and the horrors of the Holocaust, you might as well try and make it as accurate as possible. I feel like this is like a tiny issue, but they could have just made it a little bit better. Alright, so my personal review of these games, I'm not gonna lie to you, first time playing Call of Duty World War II, I actually didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. I thought it was too self-centered in a way, because I was like, oh, this is focusing way too much on the Americans. There's like no other alternatives besides the Americans. You only get to play as the Americans. It's this constant like America like idea, and I didn't like it. But you know, I'm not gonna lie, it kind of grew on me. Call of Duty World War II, first time playing it, I realized that the story wasn't so much about the Americans, but it was more about the brotherhood and the bond that Daniels and all his other members kind of established. And because of that, I'm not gonna lie, I actually enjoy this game a lot more than I did the first time. It's a good story, it's a good message, and it's good gameplay. I mean, I can't complain. Look at these graphics, look at these visuals. I can't really complain. These look pretty good. So, I mean, you know, the only thing that I would maybe criticize is, if I could, I would add a little bit of variety, like, oh, maybe like an option to play as a different army or a different soldier or something. But besides that, it's pretty good. I've never tried the multiplayer, don't plan on trying the multiplayer either. I don't play Call of Duty games for the multiplayer. And it's kind of sad that they've gotten rid of single player campaign modes now, but guess that means I'm never going to play a Call of Duty game. Alright, and then for Call of Duty War, oh my god. This is one of my favorite games, period. Like, it's not even about Call of Duty at this point. This is just one of my favorite games, hands down. And the reason why this is one of my favorite games is because the atmosphere that this game builds is absolutely to die for. One, this game is really good at building this demonic, evil, dark atmosphere. It's not just about, oh, good versus bad in terms of war. It's more about, alright, both of us are trying to kill the absolute hell out of each other, and we're going to do everything in our path and everything in our power to make sure that we win and you don't. And because of that, the game is really good at displaying some of the things that might actually happen in war. For example, the Russians in this game are absolutely relentless and merciless. They will literally kill every German in their sight, even if they're surrendering. It doesn't matter, because they're going to die. And it's so crazy to see that, because usually we're accustomed to seeing this good versus bad during war, and like, oh, my side is good, your side is bad. But it's inconsistent to think of war like that, and we really should be thinking of war as more of a, alright, both sides are doing something, let's see what they do, because you never know what a military or what one person or a sergeant or something might call in, and at that point it doesn't even matter what the values are. At the end of the day, you both know, both sides know that a lot of people are going to die, you know? And that's the cold hard truth of war, and I really appreciate how the game displays that. Not only that, this game has some of the best music on the planet, period. And I say that because the music is also equally as good as building a good atmosphere, and not just because it's dark and eerie. Obviously it's dark and eerie, but the way that the music is built is also really good. Like, for example, it's not just like classical soundtrack music. There's like rock music in there, there's like techno music in there. Here's a soundbite from the Call of Duty War soundtrack. Here's another really good piece from the soundtrack. Now back to your regularly scheduled program. And Sean Murray, the dude that produced the soundtrack for this game, is an absolute genius in making sure that he blends all of these different elements to build a dark soundtrack that helps reinforce the ideas that are established in the game. And because of that, I don't even know how to quantify, I don't even know how to describe how great this soundtrack is. Okay, I know I'm making it sound like I'm over exaggerating this soundtrack, but I've genuinely listened to this soundtrack just by itself. That's how good I think it is. It's just beautiful. And the Call of Duty World War II soundtrack is equally as good, because that soundtrack is really good at reinforcing and driving home the idea of brotherhood and partnership throughout the story. Hey, guess who's back? Here's a soundbite from the Call of Duty World War II soundtrack. And yes, here's another good piece from the World War II soundtrack. Now back to your regularly scheduled program. And because of that, both games just end up displaying such really good morals and values and actually teach you a lesson, besides it just being another Call of Duty game where you just go bang 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 and like shoot a bunch of people. Obviously that aspect is also really good as well, but that's not the main focus that I'm trying to convey. It's just, this game is just, both of these games are just flawless. That's all I can say. And if you ever have the chance of playing both of these games, I 100% think that you should play both of these games.
Defending this building.
So, why is it that I decided to talk about World War II? Well, the reason why I decided to talk about World War II is because I am a strong believer that World War II is literally a look into our future. And I'm not talking about, oh, World War III. Yes, I am talking about World War III. But besides just having to analyze World War II and make sure that we don't make the same mistakes, it's also a really good indicator of the type of battles that we're going to have in the future. Because in the future, our battles aren't going to just take place on land, sea, and air. Now there's like 100 different ways that we can have battles. We can have cyber attacks. We can have space attacks. Oh, for all you know, there could be countries right now that are building systems that literally just focus on putting lasers in space to allow for space attacks on other countries. You never know. And it's really important that we understand and analyze those features, not only to just defend ourselves, but to also understand how to avoid getting to that point to begin with. Because no one wants to fight. No one wants to see their brothers and sisters die in war. And because of that, I think that World War II just served, besides just being a very violent time in our history, it's also really important to know why it happened to begin with and the types of lessons that it was trying to teach us.
You can make it, my friend. You always survive.
But as always, thank you so much for listening to me ramble on about World War II and Call of Duty games, for Christ's sake. As always, I really appreciate every single one of you for watching this video, including my man, Mr. Lawrence, who I made this for. Thank you so much if you actually watched the whole thing. Quite impressed. I didn't know it was going to be this long, to be quite honest, but hey, I mean, it is what it is, and put a lot of hard work into this video, and I'm quite proud of what I made for never editing a video in my entire life. So, yeah, I'll see you guys later. Peace.